So have you ever heard of the adverse childhood experiences study? You know,
Yeah.
ACEs, right? The ACEs quiz, right? Basically, the most comprehensive psychological study ever done on trauma in children. And the authors of the study thought for sure sexual abuse would be the worst and physical abuse and so other stuff. Sexual abuse was not good. It was bad. And physical abuse was also bad, but it wasn't the worst. The worst was abandonment. Like, and by far, kids cannot be completely abandoned and come out as a functioning adult. If they even survive abandonment, the best case scenario usually is that they're fucked up sociopaths.
I want to start with trauma and psychedelics and just get your take on the person that I've been working with, who I won't name, but someone that you connected me with has been really helpful. We've done like 3 or 4 sessions and it's been very transformative. But in the last year or so, this whole topic of COVID and just the stuff that's happening in the world, I have come to realize that this person I'm working with might not be as awake to those things. And so it's calling into question to me whether or not this person is safe for me to continue working with. And I can expand on that a little bit more if you need me to, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are
Yeah,
initially.
no, definitely expand on it. Help me understand, like, you don't have to go into any details you don't want to. Just help me understand, like, what you believe roughly, what they believe roughly, why you think there's an issue, etc.
I believe that it was kind of all a sham and very manipulative from governments around the world. And I also believe that getting vaccinated and getting all of those vax passports and all these fucking things, from my standpoint, was a form of like spiritual bypass. And so the person I'm working with, when I presented this to them, was like, well, we don't really know the science, like there's things on both sides and yada yada. And I was presenting it to her because I was kicked out of a men's group several years ago for not being vaccinated. And it's created this distrust I have of just anyone I meet that's vaccinated. I just feel like I
Bro,
can't trust you.
like, but so then you're gonna have a real small social circle. Like I'm with you. Of course I didn't get vaccinated. I'm not a fucking idiot. Like and you're right. Like everyone who got vaccinated is on some level. The best description of them is they're willing to believe a lot of bullshit. Jordan Peterson got his first vaccine. I know Jordan. He's a friend. He got his first vaccine. And I try to tell him, like, what are you doing, man? But like, the reality is, I think the reported numbers are like something like 70% of adults in America got at least one vaccine. You can even assume, let's say, a third of those or a quarter of those were lying, right? Like, because there's plenty of people who did that, who did the fake vaccine card bullshit, right? I didn't, because I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to obey a rule that I think is bullshit. But if you're lucky, half of people you meet are vaccinated. If you don't, if you want to automatically like dismiss them, I get it, dude. Like I'm not necessarily saying that's wrong. I definitely would not, there's a lot I wouldn't trust about someone like that, right? I'm with you. But there are a lot of people who got at least one vaccine, who one shot, who, you know, overall, like I would look at them as a person by person, case by case basis, you know? Like, if you got kicked out of a men's group because you weren't vaccinated, the reality is you probably were better off in the long term being away from those shitbirds, number one. Number two, like, first thing I thought of is why don't you just send them Fauci's testimony where he said it's all fucking made up? Like, I mean, they're all all of those people, like that's a big part of where the world is right now, is those people are starting to realize, holy fuck, I got fooled, or I like, That's why I said this, and a bunch of other people said this too. I wasn't the only one. I said like in 2021, I think I tweeted this, and I don't think I was the only one to make this point. So it's not like I'm whatever, but like if you want to know who you would have been in Nazi Germany, now you know, right? So like I know who I would have been. You know who you would have been. Most people did in America. What happened in Nazi Germany? They rolled over. And then there were quite a few people who became cheerleaders for tyranny, destruction, murder in a lot of cases. Yeah. So you know. I mean, like you can look at this as like, I'm like in a very negative way if you want. I think it's fucking I mean, it was shitty to go through. I'm with you. I think it's fucking great.
I mean, I feel like you probably navigate this very differently than most people, but it feels like the more I learn about the world, or like recently I've been learning a lot about Dr. Jack Kruse's work, the more I learn about all this shit, it just feels like the more isolated I become.
So, okay, listen. Let me explain something to you. The more work you do, and I mean like psychological, emotional work, not necessarily psychedelic work, although that's a tool you can use to do emotional growth and spiritual growth. The further along, listen, Jesus Christ called it the way, Buddha called it the way, most of the avatars have called it the way. Some have called it the work, but that is the further along you go on the path of the way, the more you realize, but yes, the lonelier you get for sure. But I know the phase you're going through. I went through that phase and I'm out the other side. What's on the other side of that phase is realizing I wasn't actually, I wasn't not lonely before. I wasn't, around a bunch of people that I was connected to. We were all just blind and stupid and deaf and dumb and disconnected in a group,
Mm.
right? Like, and it does in a way kind of suck to wake up. It's like almost like being a little bit awake is the worst. It's like go be a fucking sheep or wake the fuck all the way up and go, right? Being a little bit over the line is kind of the worst because you're awake enough to know that the sheep are sheep, but you're not advanced enough and spiritually experienced enough to really get through the pain of that and get to the kind of the pleasure and the transcendence of it, right? I get it, dude, but that is just a phase. That is part of doing it. And you are lonely if you are comparing. It's sort of like imagine if like I'd have a literal flock of sheep right out my fucking door. Imagine if one of those sheep just kind of like, I'm just going to make this up. This is not an exact sort of thing. But imagine one of those sheep ate some psilocybin mushrooms and like raised its cognition level and its spiritual level to that of a dog and like realized like, oh, like these dudes are nice to us and they like feed us and keep the coyotes away. And so like we like them and follow them around. But the reason they do it is because they're gonna fucking eat us. Right? And like and the sheep and all is like, no, don't fucking follow that guy. He's gonna kill you in 2 years when you're fat and like the sheep are, what is wrong with you? No, he's got food. Like they wouldn't there's like and then, of course, like the two livestock guard dogs I have with it would be like, "How the fuck did you know that?" Like, wait a minute, like, and they'd be all like, "So it's like that sheep would be very lonely because its identity is still kind of sheep, but it's just awake now. So like now, if it switched its, I can't switch what it is, right? But if it switched its identity to dog and started hanging out the livestock guard dogs and realized, oh, okay, I have a crew, but it's not 50 sheep, it's two livestock guard dogs. It's now raised its level of consciousness, raised its level of awareness, and it's found a new tribe, a new group. It's
Mm.
found other people at its level, right? This is not like the greatest metaphor. I just kind of came up with it on my own. But the point is, um, yeah, dude, when before it has its new identity and it's established on its new level and met other beings at that level, it still identifies with the ones at the lower level. And that's where you are, man. And that's part of the group, or that's part of the phase. is like realizing, and also, bro, like grieving like who you used to be, the relationships you used to have, what you thought they were, even though now you realize that that's not what they are. That a literal group of guys that you thought were friends of yours valued their status and their tribal signifiers over their relationship with you. Yeah, that sucks, dude. That's worth grieving over, not them,
Mm.
but what you thought it was that it wasn't, right? I mean, like, but this is growth. This is how it works. When you're going through hell, the only thing to do is keep going. And
Yeah.
you can stop if you want. That's good. That's the worst, is to just stop there. Some people go back. Like, I've seen that happen. I like, man, someone very, nah, not very famous, but famous. Like, you probably know his name. It's a guy I know. He did one MDMA session. He's a pretty smart guy. Like, he's well known for his spiritual awareness and coaching and all that kind of stuff. And he did one session, maybe two. I think it was just one. But like, he saw his whole life. He got it. Like, it was actually pretty remarkable. I was impressed. Like, he called me afterwards, and I was like, wow, dude, I didn't think you would realize. Like, I could tell, like, his whole life was fucked. Like, everything about it. Like, I could tell. Like, he's the definition of the guy who puts himself forward as one thing, but in reality is the opposite. But he didn't see it at all. And he got it. He saw it. And like, his wife, oh man, she was a pretty good fit for him for who he was, but like, the reality is she's like a horrible sociopath and doesn't care about him at all. And he's
Mm.
just a vehicle for narcissistic supply and status for her, and which is like, she's real hot and smart and was helping him too. So it's not like they're not a good fit for each other, but it's like, he saw it all, and he called me after, like, the next day, shattered. And he kind of like basically was like, what the fuck do I do? And I'm like, man, I keep wanting to say his name, but I don't, you'll know who it is. I said, dude, you only have two choices. You face this, accept it. It's gonna really suck for a while, but then you're gonna come out the other side, and then you're actually gonna be who you portray yourself to the world as.
Mm.
You'll look and feel nothing like you are now. But and I can't tell you, it might be 2 years, it might be 20 years. I don't know, dude. Like, and it's gonna suck. It's gonna get even worse. Like, this is bad. It's gonna get worse. Okay, like, he's like, what? Divorce her, just take everything and this and that, and she'll this and blah blah. And I'm like, it's bad. It's gonna get way worse. But you will, maybe not even a baptism by fire. You might have a real, like, it's gonna burn. You're right. But when you come out the other side, you will be the person that you portray yourself as to the world. Or, and this is always an option, always. Anyone who says it's not an option is lying. You can just bury this and go back to who you were and double down on. That is an option, man. Like, it really is. I have seen people do it. I'm just gonna tell you, man, that the price you pay for that will, in the long run, be way higher than if you burn it all down now.
Mm.
It won't, it will hurt less now. It'll feel way better now. You're going to put off all the pain for maybe a long time, for sure. But that debt will come due, and it will be way more. And bro, I thought getting off the phone, he was going to go this sort of spiritual ascendance path. He didn't. He didn't. He just, he basically put it in a box and buried it and doubled down. And he's still, making himself out to be this thing to the world that he's not. He's still in that
Mm.
relationship with that woman, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's working for now, but whatever.
Yeah. So that brings up I was re-listening to the When Relationships Don't Grow the Way That You Do episode you did for Tucker Max Experiences. And I wanted, if you feel comfortable sharing a little bit more, you brought up the example of Veronica, like twice in your relationship, you've kind of had this pivotal moment of like, I have to go this way and I want you to come with me, but it's okay if you don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of having to let her go. And I'm just curious, when you say let her go, like, does that mean you were prepared to like separate if that had to happen and just go that path? Or what was that
Yeah.
actually like?
Yeah, dude. Look, man, you can't make anyone do anything. And you cannot pull anyone along the path of spiritual and emotional growth, right? You may think you can, but you can't. And if they're gonna walk that path, it's gonna be because they want to and they do the work. And letting her go, what that means is I was exerting a lot of emotional energy on trying to get her to do what I wanted her to do, which is bullshit on my part. Total bullshit. That's me trying to control her. That's me trying to manipulate the outcome. That's me trying to, do her work for her, or grease the skids, or nag her into doing it, or whatever the fuck. All of that is, in a spiritual sense, completely wrong on my part. Toxic behavior in a lot of ways, depending on how I did it. But at best, it is not healthy. Um, it's not part of the way. And so, what letting her go means is stop doing all of that and do my work and focus on myself and not her. Now, I can keep loving her. I can tell her I will help her in whatever ways or support her in whatever ways I can. Let her know that, that's there and I'm willing to do it. And I want her to come forward with me. And, we're on two paths that are parallel to each other. We're not on the same path because she is a person and I am a person. Just because we're in a relationship doesn't mean we become one person or we walk on the same path. We don't. We are each on our paths together, but they are parallel paths, not the same path. It's really important. That is a very, very important distinction. And so letting her go is stopping, yelling at her on her path or telling her what to do on her path or pulling her along her path because I can't do that. I wanted us to be together. I hoped we were. I offered her whatever help I could offer. Then it's up to her, and vice versa. But you will hear this. You're not in a relationship, pretty clearly, or a serious one.
Not yet, no.
I'm sure you will be at some point. People will tell you all the time. I'm sure you've heard this a million times. Oh, my wife and I need to work on our relationship. No, you don't. There's no such fucking thing as working on a relationship. That doesn't exist. What someone means when they say that is, I want them to change.
Mm.
That's always what they mean, even if they don't realize. If there is you can have problems in a relationship, but it is not a relationship problem. It is my problems entering the relationship or her problems entering the relationship or both of our problems entering. And the really explosive shit is when I have a major trigger issue and she has a major trigger issue and they overlap. That's when shit gets fucking nuclear. That's why people separate. Because, like, if I have a big issue and she doesn't, usually you can work it out. But
Mm.
she has a big issue and I don't, usually you can work it out. Almost always. But when you both have issues, then you're both stuck in your own shit. And I'm seeing her in a way that she's not. She's seeing me in a way that I'm not. And then it's like, and neither of us can get out of our shit. And it's like that's that's when shit goes really sideways, right?
Yeah.
But that's not a relationship problem. That is my problem overlapping with her problem.
And so I mean, it's kind of scary for me to hear that. And part of that is because I have this very anxious attachment. And so,
If you understand you have an anxious attachment style, that puts you, like, seriously, that's like you started the race and are already past midway.
hmm,
If you know that. And if it's
yeah,
true, then it's like you can go into a relationship understanding, okay, here's how anxious attachment plays out. And it doesn't mean you won't have a lot of issues. It doesn't mean you won't have feelings that are hard for you to handle, blah, 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 blah. But at least oh, okay, here, it's like if I know I'm prone to a certain set of financial mistakes, then I can be looking out for those. Oh, I'm going to buy a Lambo if I see it for sale. Okay, then don't go anywhere that Lambos are for sale. And if the Lambo's for sale, or if you have to, set up your system so that you can't make major impulse purchases. And then you won't buy a random Lambo you see. So it's not like you won't have the impulse, and it's not like even you won't try, but at least you'll set up systems to stop yourself.
yeah. I had this conversation with my brother a couple weeks ago where I've been seeing this woman and it's just been fucking anxious attachment every single time. Mostly like when we say goodbye, right? It's like a separation anxiety almost. And I went over to my brother's one day, like maybe like one day after I saw this woman, and I just like broke down crying and hugged him and like found support in him. And he has seen me go through this many times before, and he just asked me like, do you think this is something that you want to work on, kind of implying that like the degree to which I was feeling the sadness or whatever it was part of the problem. And I'm curious, do you think that working on the trauma and all this shit, it's like, does that ultimately reduce the intensity of the emotion?
Yeah, dude, what do you think emotional work is? That is what it is. All it is feeling your feelings. You have an anxious emotional attachment style for a reason,
Mhm.
right? It was an adaptive response when you were a child to some very stressful situations that you were in with primary caregivers. I don't know any of the details. I'm sure you do. That, but like anxious let's say you do have anxious attachment style, right? I'm not sure. I don't know you well enough to know. But let's just say it's an accurate assessment of how you feel when with people that you're very attached to. I mean, so roughly speaking, what that means is that you had a primary caregiver or multiple ones who were not there when you needed them, who were leaving a lot, who whether they did it on purpose or not is irrelevant. They might have had the absolute best intentions, but their intentions don't matter. What matters is for you now. Their intentions are irrelevant. What matters is what were you feeling at the time, right? And it was pretty clearly overwhelming feelings of abandonment, right? And then maybe some other stuff mixed in. And the only way you could deal with that is as a child, there's two ways generally, and there's a lot of ways to deal with abandonment. I mean, I got very much abandoned by my parents. I don't really have an anxious attachment style. I developed other sort of behavioral patterns that worked for me, but at the time. But as a child, when you get abandoned, that's actually so. Have you ever heard of the adverse childhood experiences study? You know,
Yeah.
ACEs, right? The ACEs quiz, right? Bro, I got a 10 out of 10 on that. I couldn't believe that when I took that. I was like, quiz, I was like, holy shit. But so what that study feels like, for people who are listening who don't know, it's basically the most comprehensive psychological study ever done on trauma in children. And the authors of this, it was a huge, like multi-decade study. And the authors of the study thought for sure sexual abuse would be the worst and physical abuse and so other stuff. Sexual abuse was not good. It was bad, and physical abuse was also bad, but it wasn't the worst. The worst was abandonment, like, and by far, the abandonment created the worst trauma in children. Which all you have to do is know the stories of like the Eastern European orphanages after the fall of like the fall of the Iron Curtain, and it's like, oh yeah, shit, like, I mean, like the hard reality is kids can be brutally, horrifically sexually abused for their entire childhoods and come out and still be decently functioning adults. They're going to have a lot of problems, but kids cannot be completely abandoned and come out as a functioning adult. If they even survive abandonment, they're going to be the best case scenario usually is that they're fucked up sociopaths. That's usually the best case scenario. So anyway, so again, which is not advocating for any of those things, but that's just the reality. So, anxious attachment style was your adaptive response to the feeling of abandonment as a child. And then what ended up happening is you pushed a lot of those emotions down because they were overwhelming. You didn't have an outlet for them. You didn't have an empathic witness to help you process that stuff. And you were, a young kid. You don't have any idea how to deal with your emotions. And so the only way out of that now, anyone who tells you, that's a mindset issue is a fucking idiot who doesn't understand trauma at all. And you should literally not talk to that person again, at least about this stuff. Like most coaches out there are only focused on mindset. Mindset's great for certain things, and it is not a tool to ignore, but it is only one tool. And for most people, Most people need both tools. They need trauma work and they need mindset work. So even if you mindseted the hell out of anxious attachment, you're never going to think your way out of this, right? Because what is coming up are old feelings. What psychedelic medicine does, and it's not the only way to do it, it's just what was really helpful for me, is it helps put you in a state where you are open emotionally and neurologically receptive to letting those emotions up so you can feel them and then let them go. Like I'm gonna make something up. When your mom left you in the house for 3 hours and you thought she was dead and there was no one else there, that overwhelming fear is still there and it drives you. That 6-year-old afraid in you is like that the huge amount of the iceberg that's under the water, right? And until you allow that to come up, and you got to fucking feel it, dude. That's why I always tell people psychedelics don't make things better. They get harder before they get easier. They get way harder. It is turning into your shadow and facing your hardest shit. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to take this pill and feel better. No, you're going to feel worse in the short run. But then that 6-year-old, that fear that's been stuck in you for whatever, 20 or 30 years or longer now comes out. Like it's literally physically stuck in you. And the iconic book on that is Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He did all the research on that. It's amazing. And then it comes out and it's like, oh wow, I'm not afraid anymore. Like when you leave your girlfriend or this woman you're seeing, you're afraid you're never going to see her again. Not cognitively, like you're not an idiot. Like that would be ridiculous if you believed you weren't going to see her again and that's why you were afraid. No, that's nonsense. That is a residual fear that the 6-year-old you has in you that was stuffed down because it was overwhelming and it is not processed. You let that up and process it, you'll realize, and not just that one thing, it's usually a lot, right? So it's not, but this is just an example. But if you let all of that up and process it, then you'll stop having that feeling. Now, here is where mindset work can come in because some people, like you might have developed a set of beliefs as a child as a result of those emotions. And the belief set might be something like, I'm not worthy of
Mm.
people staying around. That is a mindset issue. That's not an emotion issue. You can't feel your way out of a belief system, right? And so I'm not saying you didn't, but you could have both. You can have the buried trauma, the emotion,
Yeah.
and the belief.
Oh, I've got both.
Okay, so then you're going to do both work, right? But the problem is most people will do one or the other. Like all the spreadsheet brain, tech bro, life coach people just do the belief stuff. They don't do any of the feeling. All the woo-woo crystal spiritual people do all the feeling work, none of the belief stuff. So that's why you can meet people who are really emotionally advanced and still poor as fuck because they don't
Mm.
believe they deserve wealth or abundance because it's a
Mm.
belief system, right?
And how do you work on the belief system?
The belief system is actually the easier thing. Like then that's when you like the guy, the famous coach I was telling you about, that's when you listen to him. He actually is fucking amazing with beliefs. He can reprogram motherfuckers. I've seen him in real, a lot of people have seen him. It's all over the internet. You can see videos of him essentially reprogramming people's belief systems in real time from stage. And it works. The problem is they then go home, the underlying emotional trauma is still there and it overrides the beliefs, right? Because the belief isn't based on anything.
Mm.
It's just based on his energy and his charisma, right? And so, whereas like they got this 6-year-old and then was like, I don't give a fuck about that belief. Like
Yeah.
I'm still afraid I'm gonna die.
Yeah. How do
So now
you,
a
sorry,
lot
go
of
ahead.
people like, which one do I do first? They'll think they have to do one or the other first. I don't believe that at all. I don't think that, I think you can work on them simultaneously. I think it usually helps a lot to do it, or you can, it doesn't, a lot of times doing work in one will help the other one. Like if you feel your emotions, bro, the beliefs changes come easy and fast. I mean, I've seen a ton of people do 3 sessions of MDMA therapy, and then all this belief shit that they affirmations or whatever the fuck that didn't really work before now is working gangbusters.
Mm,
So it's like think of it like being in shape. Got to work out, got to eat right. You can't work out your way, you can't move your way out of a bad diet, right? But a great diet is not going to have you do 20 pull-ups. You got to get in the gym and pull your fucking ass up, right? So it's then you can argue which is more important, and diet and exercise, like probably diet really is honestly more crucial. I don't know if the same sort of thing exists with emotion versus mindset. I just know they're both crucial. Like you can't. I don't know anybody who's like done one and not the other who's doing great. Some people might have one issue really strongly and not the other issue much, you know? So
yeah.
if that's the case, then doing work in the place where they have issues, generally they just rock it forward.
And how do I've heard you say that like you had to do this work before you could meet Veronica or something to that degree.
So I didn't do any psychedelic work. I did a ton of therapeutic
Right.
work. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I don't want to say like I couldn't have actually met her, like she was behind some door that I could only unlock with like a certain emotional consciousness level. I don't mean that literally. What I mean is she would not have been attracted to who I was 2 years before I met her,
Mm,
you know? Like, and the absolute proof of that is I know the girls I dated leading up to her. It's actually fucking crazy. Bro, I dated the 3 girls I kind of seriously dated before her were all 3 of them were nurses. Like, no, sorry, 2 of the 3 were nurses. The other one was a doctor. So, she's a nurse practitioner. And they were, God, bro, they were so much like her, but just lower levels of consciousness. It's crazy. And like each one was progressively a little bit higher level of consciousness. It's like they were almost like it's like I was, I mean, it's like a UFC fighter, like you fight a dude who's like, you start off with a tomato can and then like a low-level contender, a mid-level contender, and a high-level contender, and then the champ, right? It's like I just went up the ladder. And like until I found a woman who was like by no means perfect. Like she's grown a shitload since we met, and so have I. But I found a woman who was at a high enough level of consciousness to match me, but also was on my path.
mm,
That's the huge difference between her and the women I dated before. And the women I dated before were great women. Like not like they were shitbags and she was amazing. No, they were amazing too in their own ways. The difference was she was a higher level of consciousness, right? Like she'd clearly done a lot more work. But also like she was on the path, right? They weren't really. Like one of them I still am friends with on Facebook, and like she's the same person she was when we were dating, which is not a bad person at all. She was like, I wouldn't have dated her if she was shitty. But like, it's like really clear, like she hasn't changed much in 10 years or whatever. I guess I broke with her about 13 or 14 years ago. And she's great, a wonderful woman, but like I can see it, she's still there. And it's like, oh, honey, it's part of it's why we broke up. I remember so clearly. To I was in a real bad spot when I was dating her emotionally, not anything, just emotionally. And I was gonna I was gonna start therapy, and I asked her to come with me, not to do. I'm like, maybe this is not couples therapy. Nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with our relationship. I need to go work on myself. Like, would you just come with me and support me and be there? And she was like, I mean, you would have thought I asked her to do a gangbang or something. Like, she was like, I don't know if she thought I was trying to trick her into couples therapy or what. Like, I wasn't truly. I just wanted her there with me because I loved her at the time, like, and I trusted her. And she's a great woman. She's trustworthy. Like she didn't ever betrayed me. Like what? Nothing. And we broke up because I just remember, like I was like, oh man, she didn't get it.
Yeah.
Like I'm going this way and she's staying here.
How do I avoid falling into the trap of like falling in love with someone's potential and not accepting them where they're at?
And that's such a good question because I have done that so many fucking times. Um, I'm not entirely sure I can give you a great answer on that because I'm not entirely sure I have really solved truly that issue in me. Let me give you the best answer I have right now. And this might not be an A answer, it might not even be a B answer. It's better than an F or D answer. So it's probably in the C range. Um, it's a real simple test. This I know works. Ask yourself if they never change, am I okay with that? If they are this person the rest of my life, am I okay with that? Right? Because
Yeah.
what that does is that wakes you up to the fact that are you dating them for who they are, or are you dating who you want them to be or can see who they're going to be, or they could be? Because
Yeah.
if you're dating potential, you will not be happy with actual. That
Yeah.
forces you to look at the actual and accept the actual.
I guess though the actual is generally like there is some form of seeing that they're on a path, right?
Yeah, so right, of course, man. It's not like that's just empirical evidence. Like, okay, the woman I dated right before I met Veronica, there's actually two right in a row were very similar. Neither of them had ever shown any real inclination for a serious personal growth journey until they met me.
Mm.
Then they both kind of became junkies for that stuff, but it was very much, I think unconsciously, both of them were trying to be the person they thought I wanted to marry, right? Which is very common with women, right? Women and men, but like I haven't dated any men, so I don't know. Like I dated a lot of women. And I definitely, it was like, and both of them, I broke up with them and they dropped all of that. It wasn't who they were.
Mm.
Veronica, when I met her, was already doing more than they were doing on a growth journey. And I would share the stuff I was doing, and like some of it really fit her. And so she'd be very interested in it and ask me questions and then go do it. But it wasn't about getting me to like her. It was, this is what I like, this is information I can use. And then there were
Mm.
other parts of my journey she wasn't into at all and didn't pretend to want to do, right? Which is like, okay, so that's how I knew, that's a big part of how I knew we were such a fit is like, I'm like, she's going on this ride with or without me,
Yeah.
you know? And so, and that's different then, because I was like 9 years older than her when we met, which is actually a great spread for dudes because women mature faster than men and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not mature for my age. Like every age I've been, I've never been like a mature version of that age. I've been usually immature version. But people always think I'm younger than I am. Like I'm 48 now. People are like, you're in your 40s? I'm like, yeah, man. But part of it's because I don't look it, but then also I don't really act it either. Just energetically and everything. So we were pretty similar emotionally and that kind of stuff because she's pretty mature for her age, even for a woman. And so we were at a good sort of similar point, but it was just clear like, all right, this woman is already on a ride. It's headed the same direction I'm going. And together we can actually both be better. It wasn't just like she's going to be better because she's with me. She will be. But vice versa as well. Like I'm not running a charity, man. Not like I'm with some woman because I make her better, but it's just like, well, whatever for me. No, no, no. She makes me immensely better.
You may have already answered this in that you just shared, but just for clarification for me, maybe, how do I know when a partner is emotionally available? or when I'm emotionally available, which is the same thing, but
Okay, it's not a binary thing.
okay.
It's not either emotionally available or not emotionally available. Bro, right now you're not emotionally available. I can fucking tell by your flat affects, by the questions you're asking. I shouldn't say that's not true. You are very on a scale. You are not on the highly emotionally available side of the scale. You're not completely dissociated though, right? So it's a continuum. You're in a certain range right now. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just a range. What you want is a woman who's in that range, right? Because a woman who's way behind you is not going to be emotionally available for you. She's probably not even going to want you. But if she does, then that's usually not good for you. And a woman over here, let's say far more emotionally available than you are, is not going to want to be with you
Mm,
because you're not available enough for her, right? You're a different level of consciousness. And it's not, again, not a judgment thing. It's just you're not there. So whatever your range is, you want a woman in that range who ideally is headed in the same direction as you. Like actually, but this is really good. You didn't bring up this point, but this is a really good thing. It's funny. I've thought about this. Like, remember I just said like the three women I dated before Veronica were like progressively higher up the levels of consciousness until I met her. I have many times thought, well, hold on. Like, was there more coming that were higher level?
mm,
The answer is yes, for sure. But I wasn't ready for them, right? Like who I was when I met Veronica, a woman who's a clear level up than her in terms of consciousness and work. They say a woman like her 5 years. I knew who she was when I met her in 2013. I knew who she was in 2018. So a woman just like her, like she was in 2018, would not have wanted 2013 me. And not because he wasn't rich or famous, he was, or good looking or whatever. It's because I wouldn't have been at a level of consciousness that would have worked with her. It wouldn't have been, I would have been too far below her or behind her, you know? And so like that that was the funny thing is I was like, oh man, but like where's she like we've had problems in our marriage. There were definitely times where her shit really flared up. And I was like, fuck man, like if I had just seen this when we were together, I could have gotten the next one up. And then I'm like, but I wasn't like I wasn't the dude who could have gotten the next one up. Like she was the right woman for me at that point because we were a great match in terms of like our range, where I was in terms of openness and availability and this and that and intellect and everything really fit with her range. A woman in the next category up in those things would not have been into me. That's just the truth. That's just the hard fucking truth, man.
but what are the things, like you said that they're like my affect and the questions I'm asking, like what, I guess I just want to understand more how that makes me emotionally not as available as I could be.
Make no. These are not. That's like saying, how do my clothes make me this? No, I'm not. Your clothes don't make you that. The fact that you picked those clothes indicates something. Your behavior is all indicia of a state of being, right?
Okay.
It's not making the state of being. It's indicative of the state of being. What makes the state of being is you, your decisions, your emotions, your trauma, your unresolved stuff, your shadow, et cetera, et cetera. That's all inside of you. I can't see that. What I can see are the things you put out into the world. And
Mm.
then I can make assessments and discernments based on that that are not necessarily, take to be taken as gospel, but you pretty reliable based on I got a lot of reps doing this.
Yeah. What are just a couple of those things?
What things specifically?
Things that you see that I'm putting out just in the 40 minutes that you've known me.
Okay, so do you know what an affect is? A flat affect?
Like monotony, kind of.
Yeah, sort of. Your tone of voice is the same tone all the time,
Okay.
right? That's called a flat affect. What that normally indicates, right, is that someone has a very repressed emotional,
Mm.
right? It means they are holding a lot of stuff in, or holding stuff back. Why they're doing that, it could be a lot of different reasons why. But they are someone who is almost certainly to some degree they're dissociated, meaning they're not connected with themselves and their emotions. They're suppressing a lot of their own stuff, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. It doesn't mean they're boring, doesn't mean they're stupid, none of that, man. They might be like, bro, some of the greatest comics of all time, like Mitch Hedberg and Stephen Miller, were flat affect comics. They were fucking hilarious. And they never, their voice never went up or down a fucking octave, nothing, right? So like it's not, doesn't mean boring at all. It's a way to read emotional state,
Mm.
not not anything else. It's not a measure of intelligence. I mean, you can look at it as a second degree proxy sometimes of other things, but that's whatever. Um, what else? You can look at your face, dude. Like you have very, very few expressions on your face, right? Which is like another indicia of flat affect, which is all the things I talked about. Especially what you talk about. Like the only emotion I see a lot is like if I see something funny, like you'll laugh and smile, which is good, right? And it means like you're allowing yourself that sort of emotion, but then a lot of the other things you tend to be very your affect, not just your verbal affect, but your facial affect, right? Which is a secondary indication of that, which is a very like that's very hard to fake.
Mm.
Not that you're trying to fake anything, but like um, so that's all pretty clear. And then like you want to just keep going down the list. Like, I mean, just the way you talk about your relationship, all those sorts of things paint a picture of who you are and where you are in your life, right? Which is again, it's not good or bad. It's just it's a statement of fact. It's like saying I'm 6 feet tall. I there are people who place values on that, good or bad, right? Like I might be too tall for some girls, too short for other girls, whatever. But like it is first and foremost just a statement of fact. So you have a flat affect, you have a flat affect. A lot of people do, and nowadays it's like not an uncommon thing at all because we have an extremely, ugh, I don't know the right word for it. Oppressive is not even the right word. I don't know. What are you, 28 probably?
Yeah, exactly 28.
Dude, I don't know your background, right? Like I knew your age exactly. And it's not just from looking at you. Like you could be 24 to 34, depending on age, because you got that kind of that olive skin. You could be like one of those Hispanic dudes who look super young, right? Who just is older. Um, yeah, that's Gen Z. Man, y'all have had a fucking shitty hand dealt to you in a lot of ways, man. And so and the one of the common generational responses from Gen Z is a dissociation, is a disconnection from shit. Because shit for them has been not so bad, but it feels like there's so much pressure and so much external shit telling them what they have to be or shouldn't be or whatever. And generationally, it seems like not all of them, but a lot of that generation, their defense to this is to just disconnect from it and have this aloofness and this I don't care sort of attitude, which you don't have an I don't care attitude, but people read a flat affect as aloof and I don't care, right? Well, I'm not stupid, so I understand what that actually, because there is a difference between I don't care and a flat affect, but like a flat affect in that generation tends to read that way. And so, yeah, so I can tell your age based on, right? It's like very clear, mixed with looking at you too and other stuff. So it's not that hard to read people, dude. If you just get enough reps in and then don't see what you want to see what's there, right? And only evaluate or discern based on what's there, instead of what you want to be there or what you think you're allowed to see, like oh, there's a great do you know who Steven Saylor is? He's like okay, it doesn't matter. He's like pretty famous for like he wrote a book called Noticing because like all he does on Twitter is post like very clear, unarguable statistics that you're not allowed to like talk about, you know? Like his favorite thing is talking about like black people are 12% of the population and commit 50% of the murders or whatever the stat is. It's something like that. And it's like, you're not allowed to say this. So I'm like, okay. But like most people don't want to look at either they don't know or they think they're not allowed to write, oh, I'm not allowed to think that. I'm not allowed to see that. I'm like, oh, there if it's there, it's there. That's the truth.
Yeah. Is it, I guess the last question, just to wrap up, this feels, as you share this feels like something that I want to now start looking at and changing. Does that come naturally from doing emotional work?
What do you want to change exactly?
I don't want to be somebody that someone with high level of intelligence can look at and be like, that's a
You
not,
read like a book?
no, I guess it just feels like it's a bad thing for some reason.
Why?
Because it was like you're this emotionally available and there's going to be women that are like way more that aren't going to be into me. It's like I want a really emotionally available woman in my life.
Well, then you need to be emotionally available.
Yeah.
The way you get the things you want is you be the type of person that gets them.
So
It's that
how do I get to be more emotionally available?
you you keep going. You
Okay.
keep doing the emotional work that you're doing. I'm dead serious.
Okay.
Like I am absolutely dead serious. There is like it's like I mean, imagine like I'm in a jujitsu gym and some blue belt tells me he wants to fight in the UFC and he's like, "How do I do that?" I'm like, "Well, keep fucking training and then also train the other areas you're not training if you're not training them, and then start taking fights." What do you want me to tell you? Like you're doing the work. At least you're seeing. We haven't really talked about your entire therapeutic protocol. We can if you want, but the point is like you're clearly done some of the work and you're on the path, and you're asking me how you get to the end of the path. You fucking keep walking the path you're on. Now, if you're not going fast enough for you, okay, find ways to speed it up. Some things can't necessarily be sped up. It's really tough to speed up trauma recovery because your body, I think, can only process so much at a time. Although I think it can do a lot more than most people realize. But it's not like you don't just flush it out like, you're clearing out your colon or something. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right? So to some extent, that's just gonna kind of be that's gonna take the time it takes. But here's the good news, bro. You're a dude and you're 28. You're fucking young as hell. Bro, I started writing at 27 on my 27th, basically my 27th birthday. I started writing. So like you're super young. You're only gonna get better. I mean, clearly, look at your fucking closet. You got plastic shitty hangers. You don't have any fucking money right now, which is fine. You're 28, dude. You don't need to like um uh you've only just started to build wealth, to figure out who you are, to get your shit together, right? I met my wife at 37, which was awesome because I was like, generally men peak in terms of overall mate value between about 36 and 39, right? So you're years away from your peak, bro. And if you're already doing the work now, I didn't start what you're doing until I was like 34, right? So if you're already doing that work and you're a few years along the path, that's fucking amazing, dude. Then by the time you get to be 35, 36, you're going to be probably at a very high level of consciousness. And if you haven't paired up by then, like permanently, you'll be probably at a level where you like I'd be like trying to think of myself. Like if I was single now and not 40, let's say 38, right? And not kids and like strip all that away. At this level of consciousness, if I were 38 and single, well, first off, the dating pool for me would be tiny because well, hot woman who's done a ton of emotional work is like and not married. Yeah, good luck, dude. But the cool thing is there'd be like 10 women in the world who would fit that and they'd be all amazing. And I'd be like, their dating pool's tiny too. right? So like they'd all be all over me. I just have to find them. There aren't a lot of them, and they're not putting out ads on fucking Bumble. Um,
Yeah.
like yeah, dude, but no, dude, like you're way ahead. You're 28. If you compare yourself to someone who's 48, you're just setting yourself up for misery, dude. I got 20-year head start on you. Like you're actually further than I was at 28. And then but you're all like, bro, stop that. That's nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to get into the therapeutic protocol and all that, but I don't know if you have more time. If not, maybe,
I got a call like right now. I got, of
yeah, okay. Maybe we can do this again sometime, but just, yeah, thank you for, for like the honest feedback and
course.
everything. It's really gonna help me kind of reassess and keep going. Yeah, man, have a great rest of your day. Take
Thanks,
care.
brother. See you, man.
Bye.